You're listening to Cinematic Adventures, proud member of the Misfit Faction Media Network.
Good morning, Vietnam!
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I feel the need for speed.
Road we're going, we don't need roads.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Vices? We don't need no vices. I don't have to show you any stinking vices.
You make me want to be a better man.
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
Love means never having to say you're sorry.
He's looking at you, kid.
Not bad. I'm just drawn that way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cinematic Adventures. Don't forget, if you're listening to us on the go, you can find us on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, basically anywhere you get your podcast. If you guys are looking for more of our content, you can also find us on our YouTube channel. Make sure if you guys are watching us on YouTube, leave a like and subscribe for more mediocre content. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Paul, and with me via the Zoom studio from your mom's diary, and I am so appreciative that he did not make me laugh during this second try introing the show, is Sean. Sean, how are you today?
Doing great.
After take two, yes, we're okay.
It's daylight savings time. We lost an hour of our lives. You know, it's a struggle, man. I hear you.
Daylight savings time is the stupidest thing ever. I'm going to start protesting. I'm going to start boycotting daylight savings time.
It's added to numerous other stupid things people have problems with in our world.
Sean swinging a political stick right away. But I got to say, one of my favorite references to daylight savings time is National Treasure, where halfway through the movie, they're like, oh no, we missed this very specific time. And the guy from The Hangover is like, oh, I know a thing you don't. Those are fun movies. We should do those at some point. But I'm excited to be back. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Probably.
I mean, probably.
Was it Reacher? I think it was.
Yeah.
No.
Might have been Reacher, actually.
Could I easily check right now, this very second? Absolutely.
Right. I mean, you have access to everything.
You have the list of podcasts somewhere.
And it's hard to get to.
It exists. Oh, I haven't been on Podbean so long that it's totally different format. We did celebrating 35 years of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Well, yeah, I remember I had to let Becky to do that episode because you were like, we did that on Multiverse already.
You know, just for that, Multiverse is coming out first this week.
A better episode.
I mean, you're on it.
Oh.
And that's where I get the angry comments because everybody likes Sean more than me. But we are back, and we are here to talk about a movie that has a little bit of a cult following. I think it's garnered more appreciation in more recent years. And I know as a kid, I loved it, and I still love it. And I never see it on TV. I never see it on any of the movie channels. And
I was looking for it on, the only streamer it's on is the MGM Plus Prime Video add-on. Bummer.
Too many things. I cannot. Like, Melanie wanted to watch a show called, I think it was called, I forget what it was called, but the only way to watch it was AMC Plus. I was like, I don't watch regular AMC. Why would I want the Plus? Anyway, now that Sean's gotten me all riled up, I'm still mad about daylight savings time, by the way. So you shush. I'm going to start boycotting daylight savings time. I'm just going to keep my clocks the same year round and be super late or super early to everything.
I don't think your job's going to like that.
They're fine. They don't even know I'm there half the time. But we are talking about the 90s class. It is a 90s movie, right? 90.
Yes. 98.
98. Whew. A year before The Matrix. And obviously, just as good in quality. We are talking about Small Soldiers. Small Soldiers. The movie about sentient creatures that come to life and they wreak havoc on a small town after a young boy does not follow any of the instructions. And no, I'm not talking about Gremlins.
Yes, it is definitely a nod to Gremlins, and it's one of those movies that was meant to be towards one audience, and then 3/4 of the way through, it was like, no, this is going to be a kid movie. And the director's like, well, we've already done all this stuff, so got a PG-13 rating, which, again,
more
for 1998, I couldn't see it by myself. I couldn't see it with my cousins. I had to go see it with a parent. Sadly, no parent wanted to go. So didn't get to see him until it came out on video.
You had a sheltered childhood.
Not really.
It was only when it came to going to the movies. Remember, we had to go see a Scary Movie 2 together in the theaters.
We did, but my mom took me to see Blade. My mom took me to see Varsity Blues. And she's still traumatized about it more than I am.
What, Varsity Blues?
God, she was not happy after that movie.
That was a weird time in movies, like between that and Cruel Intentions and all that stuff.
She would not take me to see There's Something About Mary.
Worst mother ever. Worst.
I'll still haven't forgiven her for that.
I'll tell Mrs. Barrett that. Don't worry.
Sure.
She's going to get an earful the next time I see her. But anyway, so I don't think I saw this movie in theaters, if memory serves correct, but I was telling Sean when we were first discussing doing this episode, we had this movie on tape. And at the time, so this is the late 90s, before the 2000s, really before our DVDs weren't really a thing at the time. It was a lot of VHS tapes. And
VHS was still strong. DVDs were just coming out.
I still love how in Tropic Thunder they have the whole discussion about DVDs and about Blu-ray versus high def. And Jay Baruchel's just going on and on again. And he's like explaining the whole thing at the time because it's really the only thing that dates that besides the TiVo. But
it's the VHS versus beta argument.
I just remember Robert Downey Jr. just looks over. He's like, "Were you talking to me this whole time?" Because for those who don't know, when DVD was first getting big, they broke down into two competitors. It was Blu-ray DVD and HD DVD.
You're talking about high definition, not regular DVD.
Correct. Right. So they had your standard DVDs, and then it was how are we going to make the DVDs better and obviously more expensive because money. And it came down to
you can't argue that high definition was a game changer in terms of making movies look really good.
1,000%
too. I mean,
unfortunately, Blu-ray came out on top, and HD DVD kind of went away.
Well, that was when I worked at the video store, and we had like two small sections for high definition. One side was Blu-ray, one side was HD, and I would constantly be like, which one's better? And I just keep telling people, the Blu-ray is going to be the one that wins. They'd be like, why? I said, because you can use it on a PlayStation 3, which was the new system at the time. And I'm like, HD doesn't have anything. You have to buy an HD player. At least with Blu-ray, you can get 2 for 1.
Yeah. And
so it's common sense Blu-ray was going to win.
And also, people were buying the PlayStation because it was cheaper than a Blu-ray player. Remember how expensive?
I don't remember the exact. It was about $500 for a PS3, I think. Because my parents remember telling me.
Blu-ray players were going up to like $1,100 at the time. Like they went up high. And yeah,
I will say this: the Blu-ray system destroyed my PS3. Like, because I used my PS3 as a Blu-ray, like a lot as a Blu-ray player, and it died a lot quicker than it probably should have. Because
I think it was a last-minute addition, and obviously the PlayStation is designed. PlayStation's designed for those kind of graphics, even the PlayStation 3. But yeah, I think they didn't accommodate how. Like that's what people ended up using it for. They used it for a DVD player rather than a gaming system, and I don't think they were ready for that kind of thing. But so Small Soldiers tells a story about a young boy who, like I said, he comes into contact with these sentient toys. Now, nobody knows that they're sentient, and obviously nobody did any sort of testing or computer checking on these toys before sending them out for manufacture. What? So, like, none of those toys, they did not test a single one of those toys, is what we're learning. Right?
Yeah.
But we don't get introduced to Al until about 15, 20 minutes in, I think.
And what the movie does so well is it shows how like a small toy company is bought by this huge conglomerate that knows nothing about making toys and how it we're just here to make a profit.
The movie starts off with, it's not even the main kid. It's, what's his face? Dennis Leary's Gil Mars. He sounds like a bad guy. I'm sorry. Anybody with a weird name like that?
Really?
No, he wasn't a villain, but
he was just a rich guy who didn't care about anything.
So it's funny because that opening scene, I would consider him a better guy than most. I think this movie's more relevant now than it was in 1998. Because at the end of
even says the only reason he kept the two guys, Jay Moore and David Cross, was because they came up with like the biggest toy that original company had created. That's the only reason you guys are still around. So tell me what you got.
What was the name of the toy? Because I remember we had a toy line after, like, because we were young still, my brothers and I, and we had the toys, and one of them was the original toy, Flat Shoe.
Shoe?
It burps and farts. It's like a toy that you squeeze. That's what they created. It was the #1 selling toy.
Gotcha.
Wow. I can't handle a regular day in my adult life, but you asked me something, an obscure fact from a 1998 movie. Well, you better watch out, buddy. Here it comes. So, we get introduced to Gil Mars, and he is basically the corporate stereotype. He's like every corporate thing you could possibly imagine. He's rich. He wants things done his way. But I want to say the thing that I like about him is, so basically, these two guys pitch their separate toy lines. One is pitching the Gorgonites, and he's got like the cardboard cutouts, and he's like trying his best. They're like falling over. He's like a nice guy. and he wants a toy that's educational and fun and good for kids. And as soon as he says that, they're like, yeah, next, because that's what corporate America is. And then the other guy, played by Jay Moore, Jay Moore was so big at this time. Like, he was everywhere.
I don't know
What
I
happened.
can't remember why he was so big at that time, but yeah, he was like appearing in
They wanted to make him.
all the time.
Yeah, they did Mafia right before this, I think, or around this time.
That movie is so bad, but I loved that movie as a kid.
So bad. Saw it in theaters. So bad.
That, remember Paulie, the bird?
Oh my God.
He's the voice of the bird. And
Yep. So stupid. Oh, that was another movie that somehow was always on in our house. But so the VHS thing, I totally forgot to actually finish that story. As kids, we had a minivan. It had a VHS player in it, and it had one TV that you would pull down, and it was like tiniest screen. And we had like 4 movies in our car that we rotated through, because that's what kids do. They rotate through the same freaking things. We had Small Soldiers, Clueless for my poor sister who had to deal with all this, some Rugrats Nickelodeon movie because it was an orange tape that was famous, and Sonic the Hedgehog anime type deal. It was awesome. But anyway, so we would watch Small Soldiers every couple of days, like so much, because you also only had so much room you could put tapes in. But yeah, so that's why we became obsessed with Small Soldiers.
do they still make minivans?
Of course, they make minivans. I don't know how popular.
I feel like I haven't seen a minivan in like.
I think the more like terrain type cars, like the sporty vans, they're a little bit more popular. Also, who can afford to have more than 2 kids nowadays?
There's a lot of people who have 3, 4, 5,
I can't imagine.
and then cry poverty.
Oh yeah, Sean, he's today. I love it. Take
Like,
that, society.
Scariest thing is like if you try once and you get like triplets. You just
That happened to a guy I work with. That's not even 3 boys. God bless them. But twins run in our family, in Melanie's family, and they're generational, like every other. Thank God. We asked so many times. That's definitely one baby in there, right? Yep, that's one baby. Okay, just one baby.
maybe you'd have Friends episode, like the Friends finale. Does this look like the face that we do with twins?
No, I don't. So they pitched this Commando Elite line where basically, he puts on the big show. First, he takes out like a full-scale model replica of Major Chip Hatch, the leader of the Commando Elite, and he puts on this big high-tech commercial where the toys are walking and talking and all these things. Gilmar's like, can they actually do any of this stuff? Like the thing where he punches his way out of the box. No, there's a disclaimer. Legal says we're totally covered. It's like, as a kid, I don't get it, but as an adult, I'm like, geez, this is like actual actual backroom talk that they make toys with. And it's Gilmar's who's like, hey, I want these toys to do what they do on the commercials. I'm tired of people, parking their cars on the top of Mount Rushmore because they have the best all-terrain vehicle. So he gives them carte blanche basically to make a toy line, but they only have 6 months, I think. Super tight deadline of 3 months to get the toys ready for shipment. And it's the one guy, what's his face? He's in everything. David Cross as Irwin. He is like, whoa, you need at least 6 months to do this and testing and this. And he's like, we developed missiles that could like shoot a missile across the country and put it right up somebody's ass. And I was like, oh, there's your PG-13 rating right there. And he's like, so we have the tech. You now have access to all of our technology, which is the dumbest thing ever. Little toy companies like, hey, thanks for this military grade equipment. Appreciate it. And unfortunately, that's how it ends up going. And again, this movie does pay a lot of homage to Gremlins because the one guy's password is Gizmo. Gizmo. So Jay Moore, who's actually the villain of this story, goes into their database. And I love late 90s computer use because it's like a 3-thing search bar. And he's like, computer chips, a lot of computer chips, super high powered computer chips. So he ends up putting military grade munition chips into these toys with supposedly simple.
And fun fact, we forgot to just,
correct. So
they're like, let's make these guys the villains. He's like, no, they're peaceful. Like, nah, they need a villain. We're making the villains.
They need something to fight. And that's the thing. And also, I don't know if they ever say how much these toys run for, but I think like one action figure was like in the 70s in terms of finances. Like, because I know that the little brother's like, how much are these? And Alan just goes, a lot. And Kirsty goes, there's no way mom and dad will let you get one of these. So I imagine I think they were somewhere like oh no, the truck driver, he says, I think at one point that they retail for like $79.99 or something like that. $80 for an action figure.
My thing nowadays would cost like, probably like almost $150.
Yeah. No. If I went to my family, granted, I have a $150 Captain America shield hanging up in the studio now, so I can't.
Sorry.
Not sorry. I had gift cards. Get out of my way. Don't let me be unsupervised. I actually scratched that my wife was there. She just was not supervising properly. Anyway, so the Gorgonites and the Commando Elite are both put into production, and Jay Moore's character uses his partner's password because he forgets his. And so that's why they don't flag any of this stuff. So they get put into production. We get introduced now to quote unquote the main star, even though he doesn't have top billing, which is hilarious. I always like that. Gregory Smith as Alan Abernathy. Gregory Smith was another guy that was around a lot in this time. I knew him from Xenon, Girl of the 21st Century, right? He was in Harriet the Spy. We didn't do news.
We'll get to it at the end of the episode.
R.I.P. Michelle Trachtenberg.
He was on the show Everwood.
He was on Everwood for a long time.
And he was just on another show like Rookie Blue, I think it was.
Maybe.
He was like one of those faces in the late 90s that you just felt like you saw him in a lot of things.
Well, I remember he's the son that dies in The Patriot. Spoilers for The Patriot. Yeah, I like that movie. But he's the main kid. You find out that he had a very troubling past. They never actually tell you what he did at his last school, but it was enough that they not only kicked him out, but they moved to this small town. Dad owns a very old vintage toy shop where nobody goes to because the toys are quote unquote lame. The mom's there. But it's because it's 1998, she probably just stays at home while dad runs a toy shop that doesn't sell toys. And they're fine. They have a 3-bedroom house. It's fine. It's all fine. Our world isn't.
And he won't sell war toys.
Won't sell war toys. He has a giant boat, but he doesn't sell war toys. And he's going away to a conference.
Mm-hmm.
Conference for the weekend or something like that. So Alan takes it upon himself to try and make some money for the store by convincing the truck driver for Heartland Toys. Like he catches a glimpse of the Gorgonite box. He's like, what's in that? And the truck driver's like, let's find out. I was like, I really hope that's not how my stuff gets delivered. But anyway, so they open up a box. They find Archer and they find Major Chip Hazard. Now, there's a whole set of these toys. You have, for the Gorgonites, it's Archer, Slamfist, Scratch It, Insaniac, Troglodyte, Punch It, and Ocula. For the Commando Elite, you had Chip Hazard, Brick Bazooka, Butch Meat Hook, Kip Killigan, Nick Nitro, and Link Static. And I think they do like little character intros for some of these characters, but
yeah,
it's, oh, and also we have the Gwendy dolls we'll talk about too. But this is a stacked cast of voice actors. I want to say there's something behind the Gorgonites. There's like some sort of theme behind the actors, I want to say.
Well, so the Gorgonites, so Archer is voiced by Frank Langella. But the rest of the Gorgonites are voiced by the cast of Spinal Tap. So Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, and Harry Shearer. It's also Ocula's voiced by Jim Cummings, who's not part of Spinal Tap, but he is like the most famous voice actor, in around at this time and that time.
It's funny too because Ocula doesn't have any lines.
Okay, and then we got Commando Elite, which is obviously I think the most iconic is the voice of Tommy Lee Jones as Major Chip Hazard. Something about his voice, and he gets it all, in doing the voice. The rest of the Elite are voiced by the cast of the Dirty Dozen. So you have George Kennedy, Jim Brown, Ernest Borgnine, Clint Walker, and Bruce Dern.
I liked when they do stuff like that. Like as kids, we didn't get it, but as adults, we're like,
in the credits, they say it too. Like, the voice of the Gorgonites, the cast of Spinal Tap. And I remember watching that as a kid, like, oh, okay. I've never seen this before.
They're in a band?
Yeah.
So basically, Alan and this truck driver activate Chip and
Archer.
And basically, Alan's like, hey, if you were to happen to lose a box of these toys and we were to sell them a little bit above market, and he's like, whoa, this stuff's been paid for. I don't want to get my ticket pulled and all this stuff. But he ends up getting convinced. He's like, all right, one whole set. I'll lose the paperwork. Just make sure, this doesn't bite me in the ass. Lo and behold, not only do Archer and Chip both are they completely sentient now, because we find out in a little while that the chips that they put in have artificial intelligence capabilities and they grow smarter the more they're used. And I'm like, oh, so even again, before the Matrix, they were already talking about how the robots are going to take over. I've been saying it for years. Ever since Sean met me, I've always been saying that the robots were going to take over. Here we are, and I use ChatGPT now to set up my interviews. So the toys come to life, but nothing happens until Alan goes home. But first we get introduced to, of course, his little crush, Christy, played by crushed. So, I'm sorry. I'm tired. I'm trying my best. But to his crush, played by Kirsten Dunst in a very early role for her, who plays Christy.
It's obviously post Jumanji. It's post Interview with the Vampire. She's fairly well known, but she hasn't hit Spider-Man status yet. This is 4 years before Spider-Man, but she was still big enough that she actually gets first billing in this movie, which is crazy.
And we also find out that they're
neighbors.
She's got a boyfriend, you know, he's got like the motorcycle, he's like super cool. And I would also argue, like, again, there's the Chip Hazard's the only bad guy in this. Like, the boyfriend's not antagonistic in any way towards like Alan. Like, they could have easily done that trope where it's like, little man, and like ruffles Alan's hair, like stuff like that. I don't think the Alan and the boyfriend have a single line of dialogue with each other.
No.
But she's going around looking for toys for her brother to pick out for his birthday. And of course, as they're walking in, the little brother's like, I hate this store. It's so lame. Oh, I'm sad. I'm a tiny boy, you know, whatever. So she's talking to Alan, and Alan's like, hey, like, we just got these in, blah, blah, blah. Well, no, the brother walks in on the two of them fighting. Well, you don't see it, but they're fighting.
He gets shot with an arrow.
Yeah. Hey, cool. So they go back into the room, and Archer and Chip have stopped moving, because we do see after they leave the room, him and the truck driver, that they're like, freeze, and they start moving. So this movie does a very good job. They wanted to do all puppets and all animatronics. They very quickly learned that CGI at this time was not only cheaper, but also could make it so you could do a little bit more movement. The times that it is CGI is very noticeable versus the times that they are animatronics. It's not bad, especially for 1998, and it's not as bad as, like, Mortal Kombat had terrible CGI around the same time, like the second Mortal Kombat Annihilation. But this is post Jurassic Park. So CGI is like the new hot thing that you can actually make realistic movies with. But even Jurassic Park, you can definitely tell when it's CGI versus practical. It's just, unfortunately, it's the uncanny valley effect. Like, your mind just can't process it. So he's like, hey, I'll look for the one that he wants and come back tomorrow. And Christy's like, yeah, you got it, neighbor boy. That's not really what she says, but here we are. And he ends up going home, and same thing, like, he's a little antagonistic with his mom because she's like, you know, everything okay? You know, did nothing happen? Blah, blah, blah. He's like, I could go through one day without screwing up. There's a rumor you lit your school on fire. That's the rumor that he got kicked out of school for lighting the gym on fire. And I think he kind of like is like maybe a little bit. Anyway, freaking arsonist. Psycho kid. He ends up having Archer in his backpack. Archer stowed away, and Chip Hazard then rallies all the Commando Elite, and they end up not only fighting with the Gorgons that are still at the store, but also destroying the store. I've had action figures in my life. I can proudly say that if an action figure tried to like do something around the house, I don't think they could do much. How strong are these things?
Guess they're pretty strong.
The only time it scares me is when Nick Nitro has the razor thing, like the cutting thing, and he catches Alan's hand. I was like, oh, yeah. Like, that still gets me as like a kid. I'm like, and he's just like, give me that, as he's bleeding out. Anyway, so the Gorgons disappear, and I think the Commando Elite, they leave after, I want to say?
I don't remember where they end up going. You can't find them. They're all lost.
Yeah, all the toys have gone. And obviously the store is totally trashed. So Chrissy ends up helping Alan clean up, and Alan calls the customer service line of Globotech. And the funniest part is, have a nice day, ma'am. And he leaves a detailed message, basically just saying, your damn Commando Elite wrecked my dad's store, and like threatens to sue. Larry and Irwin get this message, and that's when they find out that the X-1000 is a military-grade chip. They go talk to the scientist guy, who's like, then there's a problem with your software because the chip is perfect and it will do anything it needs to do. And the funniest part of this entire movie is he sneezes inside his clean suit. It's all in the front. And they're like, bless you. Thank you. Just covered in snot. I don't know why. That always made me laugh. But so the Commando Elite actually follow Alan home. They figure out where he lives, and that Archer's there. And that's when Nick Nitro catches him in the hand with the thing. And we forgot to mention that after they clean up the store, his dad comes back early and notices one thing wrong because parents. And it's the boat in the middle of the room. It like snaps. And Alan's like, I was cleaning and I knocked it over. You were dusting with what? A croquet mallet or something like that. So she leaves and she takes, I think she actually grabs Archer with her so that he doesn't get in trouble, because he also has found out now that Archer's sentient and it's alive and he can talk and like all these things. What did you think of Archer?
I mean, you're introduced to him and you immediately know they are peaceful. You know, they're not meant to be bad guys. And I think Frank Langella adds just that older
Wisdom.
sage voice to that character. I thought it was very perfect for him. It's very soft-spoken, nothing crazy.
Mm-hmm. And they discover on the magical device known as Encarta that Gorgon is a place. Keeper of Encarta.
Do you remember Encarta?
Oh, it's the Wikipedia of our age.
It's true.
If it was a computer game, it would have given us dysentery. But anyway, Oregon Trail reference for those of you who don't know. Afterwards, the Commando elite try to interrogate Archer, but Alan saves him. They're like hanging him over the garbage disposal.
Yeah.
And, he saves him and he throws Nick Nitro into the dispenser and cuts him in half. And he's trying to explain to his parents, like, hey, I did this thing. I got these toys. They're alive. They're real. They're fighting with each other. This toy just attacked me. And of course, Archer decides to listen to Alan's advice about, shut up. Don't talk to me. Not a word. And he's like, wise ass. Because he recorded Alan saying that to him. But he also figures out then at that point that the Gorgonites are still alive because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the rest of the Gorgonites. So they find them hiding in a dumpster. And it's halfway through the movie before we get introduced to the rest of the Gorgonites, which is wild.
The eye was funny. Ocula, just because it doesn't do anything. I can't remember which one is which was the big one?
Slam Fist.
Slam Fist.
The only one looks like he could fight, and no. And then Troglodyte, who the Frankenstein looking one. So, fun fact, I had the toys to this. I had the video games to this. Like, I had all sorts of things.
There was a video game to this.
There were two. No, scratch that. There were three. I'll talk about that at the end. But in every other iteration of the media, they don't refer to him as Troglodyte. They refer to him as Freakenstein. So, because Alan says he's like freaky, like Frankenstein, every other type of media for this calls him Freakenstein, which is so wild. So they get the Gorgonites, and one of my favorite things in the whole world, all right, this movie scene lives with me still. I still reference this scene in some weird capacity at least once a year. Alan and Christy are talking on the phone, and Alan's trying to throw game at her, like he's going to be taking her out to eat or whatever. She is walking around her room with a phone, and the phone was from a line of Talk Boys. So you remember Talk Boy from Home Alone. They created custom phones, and you can look this up. This is a real thing. I had one, and it was like almost like a cylinder type thing, and you plugged your phone line into it, and you could walk around with it, and it had like a little earpiece, and she's talking into the earpiece. The phone's not plugged in. It's not plugged in. It's not working. You're lying to me, movie. It was the worst thing ever. Like, it was so bad. But the way that they had it was the earpiece sat in it, so you could talk on it like the phone, or you could pull the earpiece out and clip it onto your pants. Badass. Coolest thing I ever had. Never worked. But I will always, whenever I think about this movie, that is what I think about, that one scene. Because I was like, anytime you have something from a movie, you're like, I have that thing. It's so weird. Yeah. So,
did you have a Talk Boy?
Yeah, I did. I had a Talk Boy, and it came with a tape. One side you could record on, then if you flipped it, it had quotes from the movie, Living in the Year 3000 right there. Yeah. Did you have a Talk Boy?
Yeah, Talk Boy.
Talk to your parents. First, you can't have one of the most iconic toys from the 90s.
You think that was one of the most iconic toys from the 90s?
How dare you?
I don't know.
Yes, it was. It still is. You little whore. But anyway, so they have their little back and forth, and they don't know that the Commando elite are not only listening to them, but they're also located in Christie's garage. He was in all of, because they make it a point that Christie's parents buy stupid crap. Like, mom's on sleeping pills, and dad's he's something successful that he's got, like, he has to buy the newest thing. And that's why Alan's parents and her parents don't like each other, because, like, Christy's parents like put on big parties and loud music to the point where even the other neighbors, when they're getting attacked, they're like, just Finkel, turn that off. It's like, wait, what? Fimple, not Finkel. They did not participate in the Super Bowl with Miami Dolphins. Sorry. Anywho, so the Commando Elite find out that Alan's got all the toys, and I want to say that they sneak into the Gorgonites program, blah, blah, blah. So the Commando Elite learn of his interest, and they infiltrate her house, and they kidnap her brother and sedate her parents.
Right, they shoot the sleeping pills into their drink.
Yep. And so, like, I didn't know what it was as a kid, but that was a very alcoholic drink. Like, it was just pure, like, alcohol and seltzer. Like, all right, do you, lady. And, yeah, they start just fucking
introduced to the Gwendy dolls.
Yes, so they make a reference to Christy collecting these Gwendy dolls, and the Commando Elite managed to use Nick Nitro's X-1000 chip, which is a great scene. I love the scene where they walk in and they're checking out all the Gwendy dolls and they're all catcalling and all that stuff. But yeah, so they actually managed to bring the Gwendy dolls to life horrifically, and they're all terrifying. Voiced by, who voiced them, Sean?
Sarah Michelle Gellar. It says Christina Ricci, but I don't remember that being promoted. I remember Sarah Michelle Gellar being like all over it because this was 98, so Buffy was just, taken off.
Yeah, prime Buffy. So yeah, they bring these Gwendy dolls to life, and they capture Christy, and they lure Alan there. This is the scene that is the most realistic part of the entire thing. So the boyfriend, he like plays a little coy. He's like, hey, like if your parents are asleep, she's like, that means they can wake up at any minute. So he's still outside when he hears Christy screaming. So he busts in. Like, I give him his kudos. He busts in. He runs up there. I'm not going to lie. If I got attacked by naked, psychopathic, Frankenstein-looking dolls with knives on their arms, I might leave too. He gets lit on fire.
And his pants get pulled off, and he has to
No, Chip Hazard.
Did he get off on the motorcycle?
Chip Hazard lights his pants on fire because he's like, an officer and a gentleman must never strike a lady. And the kid's like, what? And they fire a flame. His pants catch on fire, and he's running down the stairs, pulling his pants off. I'm sorry. Like, I don't blame him too much. He's got to be like 17. If I just got lit on fire at my girlfriend's house, sorry, I'm out.
Don't do fire.
So they call Alan, and they're like, hey, like, this is the thing. So he manages to divert them outside, and they get inside to rescue Christy, and they destroy all the Gwendy dolls. And yeah, it's a fun little scene, and they have all these terrifying weapons. And of course, we have probably the best scene from the trailer, and obviously the soundtrack. They play the song "War" as they're getting chased by the Commando Elite, and the Commando
before Rush Hour. It was 98,
same time,
around the same time. I think that I want to say, I don't know which one came out first between those two movies.
I can't. Yes, but it's a great scene. They think that they destroyed the Commando Elite. And they're like, yeah, but we find out that Chip survived. So they go back to Alan's house, and they try to convince their families about, like, what's going on. The mom, Christy's mom, is still really out of it because she was also, like, heavily drinking. Like, I think Phil Hartman only takes, like, a sip of it, and he falls asleep.
Yeah.
They're like, and, like, Phil Hartman, this is his last role, Phil Hartman.
This is his last
They dedicate this movie to him. But he was
killed before the movie was finished, before it was released.
So the two toy guys end up showing up. And they're like, hey, we heard you might have some issues. Please don't sue us or tell our boss. And they start talking to the Gorgonites. And I do like how, I think it's Irvin who's like, he's talking to the Gorgonites. He's like, you're all here. Everybody's got to be somewhere. Oh, that's true. My mom used to, and he's like, they're actually, they have intelligence. Like, they're talking and they're asking questions. Like, it's a great scene. But then the power goes out. And we find out that a Heartland truck, the same truck driver, gets kidnapped by Chip. And Chip now has an actual army of Commando Elite. So they go back to the house, and they cut the power first, and then they're going to attack. And I got to say, the only thing that's weird is there's only one Chip Hazard. He's the only one. There's only the one Chip Hazard. So he had to figure out how to activate all those commandos without activating the other Chip Hazards. Anyway, and of course, he's still disfigured, so you could tell who he is. Maybe they had an idea of having, but in all honesty, it makes more sense that there's only one person in charge. Imagine 10 chips trying to give each other orders. It won't work. No, they attack the house. They've got like a tennis ball launcher that lights the tennis balls on fire as it fires them. And then, of course, they're probably doing the most terrifying attack, playing the Spice Girls really loud. I love Alan's mom actually, and Chrissy, they're both like, oh, psychological warfare. The Marines did this against Noriega. I'm like, wait, okay, here we are. And of course, all the neighbors are hearing this, and they're like closing windows and yelling at them, and they're like, "Fimp."
So I think it's just the Phil Hartman character going nuts with his all his technology.
Okay. So they manage to defeat, or they start fighting against them, but the two inventors have found out that an EMP will fry the chips. And that's why the military didn't use them, because an EMP is created by a nuclear attack. Well, what kind of moron puts military technology into toys? That'd be Gizmo over here. He points to Jay Moore. Nuclear warhead? What are you talking about? So they devise a plan to use Transformers out back, because Phil Hartman's like, hey, more than meets the eye. That's actually kind of ironic. I'll give you that for that one. But they're going to use electrical Transformers.
Those Transformers.
Okay. So if they turn on all the power and they manage to close the circuit, it should create an EMP. Because that's how science works, Sean. Alan goes up there. Alan goes up there with a wrench and kitchen cleaning gloves.
Kitchen gloves. Yes.
So
Stupid tool.
So Alan manages to get up there, but then they all get attacked by the commandos. And this is when Archer's like, we need to go help. We need to go fight. And they're like, but we don't fight. Like, that's not what we do. And Archer manages to rally the troops, and they start kicking their asses. Like, they're also giant monsters. The one in Zaniac makes like a tornado as he goes. Like, that's his thing. Slamfist has an actual boulder for a hand. Like, I don't think Oculus does too much, but the rest of them are like laying waste to the commandos. And I do love the fight between Archer and Chip. It's very quick. Archer loses pretty quickly, but it's a great scene where Chip stabs him in the leg. He's like, let's see what your guts look like. And he's like, they're wires and metal, just like you. And he's like, you're programmed to lose. I'm also programmed to learn. Too bad you never learned how to win. School's out, loser. I was like, the 90s. So Archer ends up losing, and Alan grabs Chip and he says, you stupid toy. And he uses Chip to complete the circuit. The EMP goes off, all the toys turn off. And of course, like they knew that the Gorgonites would be included in that. And of course, this is where Gil Mars shows up, and he uses money to fix everything. I would love to know what some of those checks said, because every character's reaction was perfect. So he's got his like assistant back there, and she's got like a machine that she types it in and signs and everything. So first it's the truck driver. He's like, can you get that truck that says the Global Tech out of here? He's like, oh, with this pain in my neck and all this emotional, gives him a check. He's like, whoa, yes, sir. Right away, sir. And then he goes over to Hartman, and he's like, excuse me, you're not off the hook yet. What about my garage and my TV and my entertainment system? And he gives him the check. This is good. Thanks. Goodbye. And then he goes to Alan's parents. And as they're talking, things are falling behind them at the house. And they're like, I don't know how you could pay for, our home, the emotional damage. And he's like, I don't even think you have enough money for that. Gives him a check. Okay, maybe you do. I'm so curious. Like millions, just easy. Like, here you go. I wish I had that kind of problem where I just give out money to fix it. Instead, I have to solve things. Stupid adulthood. Alan and Chrissy have their little moments because they're looking for the Gorgonites, and they kiss. It's really awkward because she's also like 3 feet taller than him. So, they have their moment. Now they're a couple, I guess. And Alan finds the Gorgonites under a satellite dish that fell. And they're all okay because the dish protected them from, and so the Gorgonites win. And they're like, what? And they get sent off. Alan uses the boat from the middle of the toy store, which I never put together. I never realized that was the same boat. And he takes it, they're out like camping or whatever, and he lets them out into the wild to go find Gorgon. And the movie ends. And it's sad.
That was beautiful.
That's what I'm here for.
As we said at the beginning of the episode, the movie was initially intended to be geared towards teenagers, older audience, stuff like that. And then halfway through the filmmaking, the studio was like, let's make it a kid's movie. I have here, lost it, hold on. It was a quote from Making the Film director Joe Dante recalled, originally I was told to make an edgy picture for teenagers, but when the sponsor tie-ins came in, the new mandate was to soften it up as a kiddie movie. Mm-hmm. Too late as it turned out, and there are elements of both approaches in there. Just before release, it was purged of a lot of action and explosions. Dante believes the studio had hopes that this would have started a franchise.
I could see that. I could definitely see some sort of franchise with this. There was talk about a remake for a long time.
I don't recall hearing that news.
I remember that being brought up, and I remember going, why? Because this movie did fine. It had a budget of 40 million and it walked away with 71.
79.
Like Sean said, this movie it actually had a couple of issues afterwards. Burger King was not happy because they created a line of toys to promote it, because Burger King and McDonald's, they will only do G and PG movies for the most part.
Reason why we got Batman Forever and Batman and Robin.
So Burger King had a line of toys. They were met with some controversy because this movie got the PG-13 rating, and executives were like, we did not know that. We were led to believe that it was going to be a PG movie. Joe Dante says the MPAA gave the movie a PG-13 rating due to the scene where the commandos put the drugs in the drinks. So, yeah, so Burger King had that. They had also a lawsuit. So in 2000, filmmaker Gregory P. Glant filed suit against Steven Spielberg, DreamWorks, and Universal's, alleging that they infringed on the copyright of his 1990 short film Ode to G. Win his lawsuit, and it was dismissed. But yeah, so this movie had a lawsuit. It had the Burger King controversy. But you don't hear about any of that stuff because nowadays they don't care. But I definitely think that this movie...
That's the true only reason about the PG-13 rating and not the violence or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why would Burger King get all bent out of shape about that? Like, you know, they could just be like, look, this is why I got PG-13.
Starting with Power Rangers. Power Rangers really kicked this off, and then South Park brought it to the public zeitgeist like nobody's business, where finally they were questioning what is created for children. Is it actually appropriate for children? Parent groups went after the Power Rangers for their excessive use of violence, and let's not be frank. People die in Power Rangers. Like, there's no way people do. You think they evacuate all those buildings before the giant monsters and Zords get there? No. All right.
Yes, I do.
Everybody out. There's a bunker.
Come on. He hits the same building in every episode.
The Dragon Zord's just hanging out in Angel Grove Bay.
I'm telling you, when they put Power Rangers on Netflix back in like early 2010s, and I'm watching this and I'm just like, oh my God, how did I like this so much as a kid? It's the same shot every freaking time.
Well, it's funny you say that because we watched. Did you watch the Power Rangers Forever Ranger special thing?
I don't think
They brought back David Yost and all the
the Power Ranger. Oh God, yeah, that was horrible.
It was horrible because they did not make it for their original audience. The original audience is as old as they are now. Like,
yeah,
they made it for kids, and it was just so bad.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing. Power Rangers is a kid show. It doesn't grow. It doesn't change. It's the same show. Even when they started rotating Power Rangers every year, like it's still the same. But Power Rangers in South Park had come out right before all this stuff, and that brought it into so parent groups were all over anything that they thought was not suitable for children. And now if I go on TikTok, it's just like naked chicks dancing. Like, what is this? What is happening in our life? Anyway, so I gotta say, I love this movie though. In terms of quality, if I were to give it a rating, it'd be a 3, perfectly 3. But in terms of nostalgia, berries, type, like just looking through those rose-colored lenses, I give it a 4. It is good time. It is a movie that I always base movies on, if I put it on, am I watching it or is it just background noise? Any movie that I specifically put on, like even if I'm just going through channels, I'm like, oh, I like this movie. If I'm doing other things or if I'm on my phone or whatever, or playing on the Switch, it's a movie that I like, but it's not enough. If I put on Small Soldiers, everybody better be quiet. I want to watch Small Soldiers. All right?
Yeah, me neither. For some reason, that was a movie. I think I had it on VHS when you have any movie I could on VHS, but I never got it on DVD.
Yeah.
I give this movie a 3.5. It's one of those movies I have very fond memories of the very first time I saw it, because again, wasn't allowed to see it in theaters. So like you're watching and you're going like, why wasn't I allowed to see this movie? And I remember watching going like, this isn't that bad. Like there was nothing in this movie that I was like, oh my God, that's insane. Like how'd they get away with that? No, it's just, it's the whole notion of, toys revolting against, human beings. And it's again, it's Gremlin story.
It's Gremlins and Toy Story put together.
Yes.
So it makes you wonder if they had done the movie from the opposite perspective, because none of the humans side with the Commando Elite. The Commando Elite have no human allies in this. It makes you wonder what would have happened if half the humans in the group went with Commando Elite. I'd actually watch that sequel, like people on the Commando side, especially nowadays with the world's political commentary. Again, this movie was a little ahead of its time in certain things, but I don't think it was intentional. But yeah, it's definitely a solid movie. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It is so much fun. The video games. So they came out with, I think, 3 video games. I had one of them. So there was a Game Boy Advance game. There was a PlayStation. There was a PC game. There was a Game Boy game. And then there was another PC game. So it was Small Soldiers for PlayStation, Small Soldiers Squad Commander for PC, Small Soldiers, the Game Boy game, and Small Soldiers Globotech Design Lab. That's the one I had, Globotech Design Lab, where basically you would pick between the Gorgonites and the Commando Elite, and you would make your own using pieces of the characters. So you would make your own toy, and they had to fight each other. It was actually pretty fun. And I made some weird Gorgonites because they also they added characters for it. So it wasn't just the main Gorgonites and Commando Elites. It was, they added some extra. Like I think they added Flat Shoe in there. That's how I knew his name and remembered him. They added a couple of other characters, but it was a fun game. The other games, one did not follow the movie at all. I think it was Archer in Gorgon or something like that. One was a side scroller, followed the movie kind of game. Like, you remember the Toy Story game? One of the hardest games in existence. Oh, for Sega Genesis, never beat it. Couldn't beat it.
I don't remember a Toy Story game for Sega at all.
Sega games were so hard. This was also the time like the Lion King and Aladdin and all those games.
Oh God, bro! I have the Lion King Sega game on PS, my PlayStation, along with Aladdin and the Jungle Book. I can't figure out the Lion King game. I can't figure it out.
I beat it as a child.
Oh, there you go.
They made that. I know, right? They made that game specifically difficult, so people had to rent it again. Like they've said.
That's most games.
But oh God, yeah. Which part can't you figure out?
No, first of all, I never played the game as a kid. I never had the Lion King game, so I was like, let me try it.
Learning
So much about.
And
I'm like, what is it with the lizards? Do the lizards you jump on them? What do you do? The whole like when he roars, I'm like, what is that supposed to even do? It doesn't do anything. And like, all you have to do is get hit twice and you're dead. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I give up. I just play Aladdin.
I forget which convention Melanie and I went to. But we went to a convention where they had like a retro video game section, and they had, because Aladdin had 2. It had Super Nintendo and it had Sega, and they were different games. They were very different games. Yeah. Sega had the sword.
Terrificon, Lincoln's Son.
Would have gone to that with you.
Like, you and Melanie came to one.
Just me.
Oh, okay.
I forget where.
Well, fun fact, Terrificon, they got Haley Atwell.
Ooh, by the way, it was Awesome Con. That was it. Down in
Awesome Con.
But we would love to hear your thoughts on Small Soldiers, or basically any Gremlins knockoff. Any movie that gives you Gremlins vibes or even Small Soldier vibes. Let us know in the comments below what your fond memories are, especially of your childhood and overly violent kid shows and movies. If you guys listen to us on the go, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe for more content. We're also on our website, themisfitfaction.com. Brand new episode of the Multiverse Fancast this week. Shockingly, who knew? On Captain America Brave New World. So make sure you guys check that out too. But I think that's going to wrap us up for today, because I said a half an hour before we started, and we're closing in on 55 minutes. So I'm Paul.
I'm Sean.
And we'll see you guys next time.